Hey Noel, this is James responding to your video as you responded to Ben Witherington's video. I thought you raised some great points. I thought I love to see your passion on the issue as you discuss and explore scripture. I just had some issues with what you were saying, and they come about threefold. First, I would just implore you to watch Dr. Witherington's video again. It seems that you said you take issue with his approach to the subject, and you're kind of sick of his posturing or the posturing of the stance that it's clear to see that women were equals, and the New Testament scripture gives them full rights, and so I would just ask you to rewatch the video because I saw something different. I saw a sort of humility coming from him. I mean, one of the greatest New Testament scholars of our time, definitely in the top tier, certainly has a right to say this is what I think or this is my opinion, and and even beyond that, even to say conclusively that this is the scholarship of the age. But he doesn't do that. I see him at a minute and 37 seconds. He says, "It appears to me." To be reasonably clear. Very humble, very quiet when he says that. He's owning his statements. I find the whole thing to be humble. And if anyone has a right not to be humble, it's him, um, with his volumes on these types of things. But I find him to be quite humble. I don't see him posturing at all, and I just think that that's not a very legitimate complaint. The second issue you bring up is you talk about uh, Witherington pointing to Jesus as an example, and how Jesus didn't do much teaching on, and how he did a lot of example, and what are we supposed to do with the example? But you talk about the example only in the area of women traveling with Jesus. But Witherington's point there was, and he very clearly says, it's not that women traveled with Jesus, which you kind of just toy with there. Um, but it's more that he had women disciples. Women disciples. He says he was the one of the earliest rabbis in Judaism to do that, to have women disciples. No one had done that, and and more than it just being an example, we have to look at what the nature of a disciple is. The disciple is not someone who decides they want to take on the yoke of a rabbi, but that a rabbi chooses somebody to take on their yoke so that they will spread it, keep it alive, keep it going. So by having female disciples, Jesus wasn't just being progressive and just wasn't teaching anyone that came. He was demonstrating that he had faith in women, which is something brand new, to take on a yoke and spread it, and to make it grow, to teach it, in effect to imitate him, to become like him, to become some sort of rabbi or teacher. And that's why in later subsequent books of Paul's, when we hear about Phoebe the deaconess and Junia the apostle, the highest office in the church, it's just a reflection of Jesus's faith in women to take on his yoke and make it grow, spread it to every nation. So it was less about women traveling, though that's an interesting, extreme progressive caveat of the discipleship thing. The discipleship is really what's at heart, but that he also traveled with these women disciples, and that was amazing. That actually is just a huge thing that had never happened before. And though yes, it still is an example, we can't miss the point of discipleship and women being disciples. And then finally, uh, your third complaint is just kind of seems to be that he doesn't go into great depth. Um, and you accuse it to his arrogance, which I talked about earlier, but he doesn't go into great depth about the situation. And I find it hard to bring that complaint against him. In one, that the interview was an hour tops. I don't know how we expect him to go into like the full exegesis of the New Testament about um, women in ministry in that 8-minute video clip. But secondly, you accuse him of ignoring Pauline passages. You say that he's ignored, and then you listed three. You said 1 Corinthians 14, 1 Timothy 2, and 1 Corinthians 11, I believe. But very clearly, I would ask you to watch the video again, because Witherington, he's the one who brings up 1 Corinthians 14 and And 1 Timothy 2, he names them and says what he thinks about them. And in 8 minutes, he says, I feel like Paul was correcting problems in that church. He was critiquing women in that church, and he would have done it for men too. So I don't see him ignoring it. In fact, he brought up those two passages that you accused him of ignoring, and he gave his answer to them. In 8 minutes, he blamed it on particular situations, which I know you probably weren't hoping for, that we were talking about cultural issues. But he said that Paul was correcting problems in the church. But overall, I don't think we can accuse him of being flippant or be upset with his posturing about the situation. The man has written 3 books on it. He's written, this one, and this one, right? I mean, 3 books. It was his doctoral thesis. He's written books about it. I mean, the man has spent considerable time on it. I don't know how we can accuse him of anything less than giving it great attention in his library of books that he's written. So, of those 3 issues, maybe just take a watch again and see that he doesn't ignore Paul, especially the hardest ones that you've brought up, um, the discipleship issue, the example of Jesus, and certainly his posture about the thing. He's devoted considerable time to it. Those 3 books aren't including his socio-rhetorical commentaries, which would have gone through Paul's letters and also many articles on the subject. So, thanks. I hope you're doing well. Talk to you soon.